We live in a world that rewards productivity. Every morning the world wakes up with a sense of urgency. The emails, the deadlines, the expectations, they come at us like waves, and we respond because we're wired to move. We're told that to be successful, to matter, to make progress, we have to go faster, do more, hustle harder. But what if the secret to making meaningful progress every day isn't about pressure at all? What if it's about starting with purpose? Most people wake up and immediately feel the weight of what they have to do. It's a mental checklist of tasks and obligations. And we often convince ourselves that the more pressure we apply, the more progress we'll make. But pressure is reactive. It's a response to fear, to scarcity, to expectation. Purpose is different. Purpose is proactive. Purpose is anchored in vision. It doesn't shout. It guides. The most consistent progress doesn't come from force, it comes from clarity. When you understand why you do what you do, you stop chasing outcomes and start creating meaning. That's the difference. One path leads to burnout, the other leads to fulfillment. One is fueled by adrenaline, the other by intention. There's a simple truth here. People who make progress every day don't necessarily have more time, more talent, or fewer problems. What they have is a sense of direction, not just a goal, but a reason to show up even when it's hard, a reason to try again even after failing, a reason to keep going that's bigger than the discomfort in the moment. You can tell when someone is operating from pressure. They're anxious, their energy feels rushed, like something is always chasing them. They measure their worth by their productivity, and they burn out often because pressure is not sustainable. It spikes, it crashes, it demands, but it rarely sustains. Now compare that to someone working with purpose. They're steady. Even in chaos, they carry a quiet confidence. Their energy is less frantic and more focused. They don't measure themselves by what they checked off a list. They measure themselves by how aligned they were with what matters. That's the shift we need to make. Because real progress, lasting progress, isn't about how much you do in a day. It's about how aligned you are with your why. Let me give you an example. Think of a person training for a marathon. Two people could be running the same miles every morning. One is doing it because they feel they have something to prove, maybe to silence a voice that told them they weren't good enough. The other is running for something more personal, more rooted, a cause they care about, a promise they made to themselves, a way to honor someone they love. Same miles, same distance, but one is driven by pressure, the other is driven by purpose. Guess who's still running on the hard days? Guess who finds meaning in the struggle? Purpose gives pain a reason. Pressure makes pain feel like punishment. This doesn't just apply to marathons or grand dreams. It applies to everyday life, waking up and deciding to be a little kinder today than you were yesterday, choosing to listen more attentively, trying again on a project that didn't go your way. These aren't glamorous moves, they're quiet. But when they're rooted in something you care about, they become powerful. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need some big lofty vision to start with purpose. You just need a little honesty. Ask yourself, why do I want to move forward today? Not in a broad philosophical way, in a real way. Maybe it's because you want to be more present for your kids. Maybe it's because you've decided that your voice deserves to be heard. Maybe it's because you believe in something you're building, even if no one else sees it yet. Purpose isn't about proving anything. It's about being something. It's about becoming someone you're proud of, not because you're perfect, but because you're aligned. And that alignment, that internal consistency, is what gives you the strength to make progress every single day, even when everything around you says it's not enough. Now, some people hear the word purpose and immediately think it has to be something massive. Like you need to save the world or launch a nonprofit or write a book that changes lives. But that's not true. Purpose can be quiet. Purpose can be ordinary. Purpose can be something as simple as making sure you don't end the day bitter, or helping someone feel seen, or choosing not to let fear win again. You don't find purpose once. You return to it every day. You remind yourself why you're doing this, why you're showing up, why you care. That's what fuels resilience. That's what keeps you grounded when things don't go your way. Because the truth is, progress isn't linear. It's messy. It's full of detours. But when you're connected to your reason, the detours don't feel like dead ends. They just feel like part of the road. And if you ever feel stuck, if you ever find yourself caught in that spiral of pressure, pause. Don't look for the next task. Look for the next truth. Ask yourself, what do I want this to mean? Because when you start your day with meaning, you don't need motivation. You just need movement. One small, honest, purposeful step. Progress begins with purpose, not pressure. Because pressure tells you to do more. Purpose reminds you why it matters. And when you know why it matters, you'll find a way to keep going, no matter what. When we think of progress, we often imagine bold moves, dramatic changes, grand gestures. We've been conditioned to believe that if it doesn't feel extreme, it's not enough, that intensity equals impact. But in reality, progress doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency. From the things we do not once, not when we feel inspired, but over and over, especially when we don't. If we live in a culture that celebrates the big leap, the overnight success, the person who loses 50 pounds in 3 months, the entrepreneur who seems to go from garage to global brand in what looks like a blink. But when we zoom in, we see something very different. We see habits. We see quiet, repeated efforts. We see decisions made in silence long before the applause. Intensity burns bright, but consistency burns long. The trouble with intensity is that it's often tied to emotion. You get fired up, so you act. But emotion is a wave. It rises and falls. What happens when it fades? Most of us stop. We wait for the next wave of inspiration to hit us. We live in fits and starts. And in between those moments, we stall. But people who truly make progress, the kind that lasts, don't rely on intensity. They rely on rhythm. They build routines. They commit to a pace they can sustain. They make showing up more important than showing off. Let's talk about that word, showing up. It sounds so simple that we underestimate its power, but showing up consistently is one of the most courageous acts a person can commit to. Is showing up isn't always exciting, it's often inconvenient, it's boring, it's doing the thing when you don't feel like it, it's practicing when there's no game, rehearsing when no one's watching, preparing when you don't know when or if you'll get your shot. Intensity asks, what can I do today to change everything? Consistency asks, what can I do today to stay true to who I want to become? There's a story I love about a man who went to the gym every single day. But instead of working out for an hour, he'd go in, lift one weight, and leave. Just one. People laughed at him. They didn't understand. But that man was building something they couldn't see. He was building the habit of going, the behavior of showing up, the identity of someone who doesn't quit. Over time, the workouts grew longer, the muscles came. But the real transformation had started on day one, when he proved to himself that he could show up. This is the power of consistency. It rewires who you are. It's easy to act with intensity when we're excited. It's hard to act with consistency when we're not. But that's where growth lives. In the repetition, in the return, in the discipline to keep doing the small things right. It's not about how much you do, it's about how often you do it. A drop of water on stone may seem weak, but over time, that water carves rock. That's what daily progress is. It's water on stone. Now, consistency is not the same as perfection. You will miss days. You will slip. That's human. The difference between those who make progress and those who don't isn't that they never fall. It's that they get up faster. They return sooner. They forgive themselves more quickly. They understand that missing once isn't failure. Quitting is. So how do you build consistency in a world that constantly demands your attention, drains your energy, and distracts you with noise? You make it small. You make it simple. You make it sustainable. And most importantly, you make it yours. There's no universal rule that says you need to journal for an hour or read 10 books a month or wake up at 5 a.m. Success isn't a formula you copy. It's a rhythm you find, one that fits your life, your values, your goals. And once you find it, you protect it. Not because it's glamorous, but because it works. And if you're thinking, but small steps feel too slow, remember this. It's not about how fast you go. It's about how far you're willing to keep going. Intensity may win the sprint, but consistency wins the marathon. And life, in almost every way that matters, is a marathon. The truth is, the most extraordinary outcomes often come from the most ordinary actions, repeated over time. Writing 1 page a day can turn into a book. Saving a little each week can grow into financial freedom. One honest conversation a day can heal a relationship. It's not magic, it's math. It's the compound effect of consistency. And here's the deeper truth. Consistency builds trust. Not just with others, but with yourself. Every time you show up, you're proving something to yourself. You're saying, I keep my promises. I do what I say I'll do. I am someone I can count on. That kind of self-trust is powerful. It fuels confidence. It creates momentum. It changes the way you see yourself and the way others see you. People don't remember every time you burned bright. They remember if you stayed. They remember if you were there when it mattered most. They remember the days you showed up even when it was hard. That's leadership. That's strength. That's progress. So if today doesn't feel groundbreaking, that's okay. If all you did was take a step, good. Take another tomorrow. Because in the end, the people who build lives they're proud of aren't the ones who moved fast. They're the ones who move forward again and again. Progress isn't about intensity, it's about integrity. The integrity to follow through, the integrity to be consistent, not when it's convenient, but especially when it's not. That's how you make progress every day, no matter what. Most of us carry a mental image of what progress is supposed to look like. It's clean, it's linear, it goes up and to the right, like the perfect chart. It's impressive, measurable, obvious. That's the version we've been taught to chase, the version we applaud, the version we share on social media. But the truth is, real progress rarely looks like that. It's not shiny, it's not loud, and more often than not, it's invisible. You have to unlearn the idea that progress is only about results. Because when we define progress only by outcomes, we miss the beauty and the importance of what happens along the way. We miss the quiet wins. We miss the internal shifts. And we start to believe that if nothing big happened today, then today didn't matter. That couldn't be further from the truth. Some of the most meaningful progress we make in life is not seen, it's felt. It's the decision not to give up. The moment we choose a better response. The time we pause before reacting. The courage to ask for help. The humility to say, I don't know. These are not things you can post on a chart. They won't show up in a quarterly report. But they matter. They matter more than we know. The problem is we've been taught to chase only the visible forms of success. A promotion, a milestone, a number. And when we don't get those, we assume we're failing. But progress isn't a moment, it's a movement. It's the slow, steady unfolding of who we are becoming. And it doesn't always announce itself with fanfare. Sometimes it just whispers, you're growing, keep going. Think about if you plant a seed and don't see anything above the soil for days, maybe even weeks, you don't assume it's broken. You know something is happening beneath the surface. You know growth is taking place in the dark where no one can see it. We have to treat ourselves the same way. Just because we can't measure something doesn't mean it isn't real. Just because it's not visible doesn't mean it's not valuable. There will be days when progress looks like energy, momentum, and breakthroughs. But there will also be days when progress looks like staying still, when everything in you wants to run, when it looks like sitting with discomfort instead of avoiding it, when it looks like resting instead of quitting, when it looks like choosing grace over judgment. That's progress too. We often think of progress as moving forward, but sometimes it's about returning to the things we've avoided, returning to the people we love, returning to ourselves. Progress can be the act of re-engaging, of reconnecting, of remembering who we are. That's not a step forward. That's a step deeper. And then there are the days that feel like a step back. Days when we fall short of our own standards. Days when we mess up, when we say the wrong thing, when we break the promise we made to ourselves. It's easy to believe that we've lost ground on those days. But what if those moments are just part of the process? What if falling is part of walking? What if stumbling is part of strengthening? See, when we redefine what progress looks like, we give ourselves permission to be human. And when we give ourselves permission to be human, we actually grow faster. Because we're no longer shaming ourselves into success. We're growing out of self-awareness, not self-judgment. That's where the real progress happens. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes from not needing everything to be perfect in order to move forward. It's the kind of strength that says, even if no one notices, I'll keep doing the work. The kind that says, even if today didn't look impressive, it mattered. Because every day counts when you're building something that lasts. Progress is personal. It's not a competition. It's not a race. It's not something you measure against someone else's timeline. You don't need to compare your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 20. You just need to ask yourself, am I becoming a better version of who I was yesterday? That's the only measure that matters, and even then, progress doesn't always mean becoming more. Sometimes it means becoming less. Less reactive. Less bitter. Less afraid. Less dependent on external validation. That's growth too. Sometimes the most powerful transformation isn't adding something new, but letting go of what no longer serves us. It takes wisdom to see progress in stillness. It takes maturity to celebrate the internal work. It takes vision to value the invisible. But those who do, those who commit to that kind of progress, are the ones who build lives that are not only successful but meaningful because they're not chasing milestones, they're becoming someone worth being. So what does progress look like today? Maybe it's not what you expected. Maybe there's no big aha moment. Maybe it's just you showing up, doing the work, being honest with yourself. That's enough. That's more than enough. Because that kind of consistency, that kind of presence, that kind of integrity, that's what creates real change over time. The truth is, progress wears many faces. Sometimes it smiles, sometimes it struggles, sometimes it looks like clarity, sometimes it looks like confusion. But as long as you're still learning, still leaning in, still taking the next right step, you're moving forward. Don't wait for the applause to validate your effort. Don't wait for the outcome to recognize the value of the process. Redefine what progress means to you. Make it personal. Make it honest. Make it yours. Because when you stop chasing someone else's definition of progress and start honoring your own, that's when you unlock the kind of growth that lasts, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. We like to believe that success is a matter of willpower, that the people who make progress every day are simply more disciplined, more focused, more driven. And yes, those qualities matter. But there's something even more powerful than willpower: environment. It's easy to admire someone's consistency or their results from the outside. We look at people who seem to show up every day with energy, clarity, and purpose, and we assume it's just a mindset thing. But if we step behind the scenes, if we took a closer look, we'd see something else. We'd see structure. We'd see support. We'd see systems that are working in their favor, not against them. Because here's the truth: your environment will always win. No matter how strong your intentions are, no matter how fired up you feel after reading a book or watching a talk, if your environment isn't aligned with your goals, your progress will always be an uphill battle. You can want to eat healthy, but if your fridge is full of junk, that decision becomes a daily struggle. You can want to focus, but if your phone is buzzing every 5 minutes and your desk is a mess, you're fighting distractions all day long. You can want to write, create, or train, but if your surroundings pull you in the opposite direction, motivation alone won't be enough. People often mistake this for a weakness. They think, if I were really committed, I wouldn't need to change my environment. But that's backwards. The most committed people are the ones who design their world intentionally. They don't leave their progress up to chance. They shape their spaces, their routines, even their relationships to support who they want to become. This isn't about building a perfect life. It's about removing unnecessary resistance. Because when progress feels hard every single day, eventually we stop trying. But when we create conditions that nudge us forward gently, consistently, something shifts. The hard stuff becomes a little easier. The right choices become the default ones. Momentum builds not from massive action, but from frictionless repetition. Let's say you want to read more. You could rely on discipline, or you could leave a book by your bed, one in your bag, and another in the kitchen. You could make reading the most convenient option. Or maybe you want to be more mindful. You could try to remember to meditate each morning. Or you could set your coffee maker to start 5 minutes later so that pause becomes built in. It's not about forcing habits. It's about designing reminders, signals, and surroundings that guide you in the right direction. Even the people you spend time with are part of your environment. Energy is contagious. If you're surrounded by cynicism, negativity, or distraction, progress will always feel heavy. But if you're in a room where people are honest, encouraging, and striving for something greater, not perfect, but intentional, then even your hard days feel different. You're not just carrying yourself, you're being carried by the culture around you. This is why morning routines work. Not because there's magic in waking up at 5 a.m., but because routines create rhythm. And rhythm is a form of environmental design. It says at this time, in this space, this is what matters. It builds a boundary around your intention. The same goes for digital environments. Your phone, your apps, your notifications, these are either helping you stay focused or pulling you further away. Every swipe, every scroll is shaping your attention. And where your attention goes, your life follows. Now, none of this means you need to go live in a cabin in the woods or overhaul your entire world overnight. Environmental design doesn't have to be extreme, it just has to be intentional. One small change can lead to a shift in behavior, and that behavior can lead to identity change. And that's the real goal, not just doing different things, but becoming a different kind of person. Progress is hard enough as it is. Life is unpredictable. Energy fluctuates. Setbacks are inevitable. But if your environment is on your side, if your physical space, your digital tools, your relationships, and your routines are all gently pointing you in the direction you want to go, then you're no longer just relying on willpower. You're creating a current that helps carry you. Imagine waking up in a space that reminds you who you want to be. Imagine starting your day with few decisions to make and more clarity to act. Imagine having people in your life who reflect your values back to you when you forget them. That's not fantasy, that's design. That's the result of choices made with intention. And that's the invitation. Don't wait for willpower to save you. Shape the world around you. Make your goals easier to follow through on. Make your distractions harder to access. Make your habits visible. Make your values practical. And above all, make your environment reflect the future you're building, not the past you're trying to outgrow. Because at the end of the day, it's not just what you want that determines your progress. It's what you've surrounded yourself with. And when your environment's aligned with your purpose, progress isn't something you chase, it becomes something you're pulled toward. Every single day, we live in a world that tells us to wait. Wait to celebrate. Wait until the result shows up. Wait until the goal is met. Wait until the scale drops, the title comes, the number changes. And if it doesn't, we don't celebrate. We keep grinding. We keep pushing. We keep telling ourselves it's not enough. But if we only celebrate the outcome, we miss the most important part of progress. Think about this. How much of your life is spent in the in-between? The space between where you are and where you want to be. That space isn't a distraction from the goal.